Hey, do you like boxing? Have you thought about what it'd look like if you added like robotics to it? No, not like that. What I'm talking about is something a little bit closer to... Yeah, perfect. Well, I've got the perfect show for you. Hey, I'm Bayfond, and today we're gonna be talking about Season 1 of Megalobox. Not Season 2, because, well, I think Season 2 is so vastly different from Season 1 that I think it deserves a video in itself. Back when the series was airing, back in like 2018, this was projected to be the next big thing. This is the one that everyone was basically saying, hey, keep an eye out for Megalobox because it's gonna change anime forever. And then, just as fast as it came into the public consciousness, it disappeared just as quick. This is primarily for the fault of the ending not being to, everyone's expectations. I'm gonna be mentioning a lot of things that this show definitely did well, but I think we should touch upon the main, reason why this show isn't talked about enough. And the ending was very subpar. I mean, there's a reason that this show sits at like a 7 point something on my anime list. It didn't really match the entire vibe of the show, and this is all because everything in the story was condensed to be in this 13 episode block, which definitely didn't serve any favors for the show. And for me personally, I wouldn't say that the ending was bad. It just tried to wrap everything up in a nice bow, but left a lot of things untouched. But let's go back about actually talking about the show, because I haven't actually mentioned what it's about. So yeah, Megalobox. It's a boxing anime, and pretty much every one of these boxers uses what's called a Megalobox suit. And it's kind of like this exoskeleton that gives you like added speed and power, all the benefits there. So you can definitely see that this isn't your normal, just regular boxing anime. This, and the fact that this show was made in celebration for the 50th anniversary of Ashita no Joe, really means something. Ashita no Joe, if you're not aware, is pretty much the progenitor of most modern boxing anime or manga. I'm not saying that it was the first one, but it definitely was the most groundbreaking. I mean, the amount of fans that love Ashita no Joe transcends generations. So with this, they were trying to bring it into the forefront so a younger audience could appreciate the series. And don't be fooled, I didn't say modern day there, because Megalobox actually takes place in a dystopian Japan. Everything in this show feels like it has some grit to it. Everything is pretty much roughed up. It's like an almost cyberpunk-ish world. And this feeling of being pretty rough and kind of like worn is really brought home with the animation style. What I want you to really hone in on right now is the grain in this picture. No matter if you're watching it in 480, 1080, or 4K, it's always gonna have this grain because it was baked into the animation style. It's meant to invoke feelings of like older animes, kind of like Cowboy Bebop. The first time that I watched this, I thought that I made a mistake because I was watching this on a not so legal site, but after clicking around, that's how I found out that this was meant to be watched like this. And the series doesn't suffer in quality because of this. No, if anything, it's the exact opposite. It brings this certain charm that you want to see from shows nowadays. You're not gonna get this unique feeling and aesthetic from all of those generic seasonal shows that are always airing. This is special in the way that this is intended to be a certain way. The best way to describe this is Adult Swim's vibe as a show. And even though it has like this older retro aesthetic to it, it doesn't make the fights any less impactful. Using this Megalobox gear, you can definitely feel the weight of the punches as they're thrown. Some of them have exposed cogs where you can see the movement of each of the gears. And then when characters say that it's dangerous to go up against someone that's wearing a certain type of armor, you can understand why. The fights in this are done spectacularly. And to build up on the atmosphere, this series has one of the most iconic soundtracks in modern anime. Instead of going for the J-route rock like in most anime, it actually heavily leans into hip-hop. The beats are immaculate and they set the tone perfectly. The character themes are incredibly special. And I think that the main insert theme really brings life to the entire world. I mean, we've got characters in this that are actively listening to music and rap here too. And for anime standards, it's better than normal. But J-rock did have to sneak its way into here. The opening, Bite, is fantastic, and it perfectly encapsulates the emotions and the personality of our main character, Joe. Joe, also known as Junk Dog, is this lone wolf character. He's this underdog that's basically surviving just day to day. And even though he's got this self-respect to him, he still participates in fixed fights set up by his coach, Nanbu. I mean, Joe's an incredibly reckless guy. He gets beat up for fun and he loves the thrill of boxing. And since, almost every main character in anime needs a gimmick, he goes gearless in this world of Megalobox fighters. I think this adds a pretty fantastic dynamic to the characters because pretty much everyone is worried about Joe and his health. Joe is pretty much the representation of never giving up, persevering against all odds, and then going for it even though you know that you don't have a chance to do it. Nanbu, his coach, even though he seems like a complete scumbag, like the lowest of the low, he's actually kind of like a father figure to Joe. He's the guy that's been able to guide Joe and give him a shot to be able to achieve his dreams. And even though he's in like deep shit with the Yakuza and the Mafia, and that he's just going deeper and deeper with them, he's trying his best to do what's right for his crew. There's Sachio in this group as well. He comes in a little bit later, but he's this kid that Joe rescues from being like used for his talents. He's a large part to where the rap music's coming in. And when Nambu's not being like the emotional center of the team, Sachio is. And then when you're looking at like the villains, so to speak, you've got Yuri, which is the exact opposite of Joe. The #1 boxer in the world. He steps into the arena with Joe one night, and that's what starts the entire story. From the moment that these two characters lock eyes, you know that you're ready for like the biggest showdown of your life. These are two people that love fighting to the extent that they're willing to die for it. Literally. And the entire series is basically just hyping up this battle between the two of them. Yuri's a lot more complex than he lets on, and it definitely isn't as clear-cut as just like one person being a good guy and one person being a bad guy. With him, there's his partner, Shirato. She's this like head of this business conglomerate that's pushing for the use of gear in like the military or any other use that you can really think of. And together they're trying to build a future that's influenced with using like this gear. Now, I said that this is an anime that's a celebration of the 50th anniversary of Ashita no Joe. It definitely doesn't like go directly with that story. For instance, Shirato, she is actually not meant to be like Yuri's partner in this. If anything, in the original, she was more the Adrian to Joe's Rocky. They were in love with each other, and that's where the main like emotional crux of the story really came into play. Here, you don't really see that. If anything, you're probably gonna like really notice the hints of maybe like there being some like romantic tension between her and Yuri, which I know was a definite subversion of what normal fans were thinking. And a lot of the characters that face up against Joe are these amalgamations of characters in the original story. They pick and choose like the best fights and the best arcs, and then they just kind of like mix and match them together to be able to like play against Joe, because in this limited 13 episode count, you can only do so much. The best thing that the series does with each one of its characters is give them a valid motivation. The series is going to give you just enough information to care about them, but they're definitely going to give you more than enough motivation for why they're doing what they're doing. And they vary for a lot of different reasons. To stay alive, to get money, to prove a point, revenge, anything. These characters are just really well done. And in this kind of world, it really takes a lot for a person to survive. I think my favorite supporting character that comes in is the older boxer that has ties to Nambu. The series doesn't treat any of these characters like they're throwaways. They're gonna keep them and mention them until the end. And I think that everything in this story is done with such care and such passion that you can't help but admire the animators. And I think they really intended this series to be a one and done season thing. The cliffhangers every week, thinking about how is Joe gonna get out of this one, were always entertaining to see no matter what. The evolution of how characters treated each other was also spectacular too. It's just that with such a clear-cut story, with everyone already knowing where this is leading to, the fact that the ending kind of decides to go a different route disappointed a lot of people. I don't want to say a lot, but it was just that it subverted people's expectations. People wanted to see the payoff of a certain battle that didn't really get showcased. But I think that that's trying to prove a point that the anime is trying to say, where fighting is this intimate thing shared by two people that love the sport. I think no matter how they would have done it, it would have been very difficult to meet our expectations. But with that gorgeous atmosphere in the world that was being created, I wanted to see so much more of this show. I remember wishing for a season 2 as fast as it could be made. And well, now that we've had season 2 for quite a number of years, I can't really talk about that one today. I gotta bring that up in another video because, well, it's just completely different. But this series always kept me engrossed while watching it. I've seen the series about 3 times now, and I don't think that I've seen a lot of things that are wrong with it. This is such a cool world that's so atmospheric that you just want to see it expanded on. So with that, I'll leave you with the opportunity to go watch this show if you already haven't. And if you have, please let me know what you thought about it. Eventually, I'll go on talking about season 2 of the show, but for right now, we're done for today. My name is Bayfun, and see you guys next time. Peace.